Om 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 Ganganapataye Namaha Om Gangurabhyo Namaha Om Aim Saraswatyay Namaha Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashranvanu Tibisi Dasadanam Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Gangurabhyo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vishnu Devanandaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Shivaya, good evening. This is our 707 Good News on Tuesdays. Tonight we're doing again a little talk on the nature of thoughts, nature of spiritual path, slowly laying out some foundation for all of us, especially these times of coronavirus. We want to have some uh, not just analysis of the situation, but we can also take into account, what we are supposed to do in the following months, and as the things slowly lift up, what will be the best thing for us to do. So I will remind you of what we said before, that the true spirituality begins with simply the word awareness. Even though this word may have been overused and a new word, mindfulness, has replaced this word awareness, I think it's still something which requires literally a whole life to master it. Therefore, I bring it again and again and again. The more you live with awareness, the happier you will be, the wiser you will be, like that. So never allow for any inner event or any psychic phenomena to um, manifest, or emotion or any kind of thing like that, to manifest, to occur within your mind without you being aware of it. That's simply the spiritual path. Everything else you heard about, psychic things, spiritual things, is only kind of a progression through all the levels of awareness. And the truth is that the awareness in itself leads you to the source of everything, which is yourself. We search for happiness, we search for knowledge, we search for existence. We call it Satchitananda, not in the measurable ways. We are searching for these things in absolute measure. Because that's who we are. Our essential nature is the absolute existence, absolute knowledge, and absolute joy, happiness, or bliss. Since these are the three that's within us, we're continuously searching for these outside. But the way to understand this process of spirituality is truly a journey from um, of the beloved to the beloved, sorry, of one who loves to the beloved. So in a way, we can say that this journey is from the self to the self. There's no really a differentiation between the lover and the beloved. It is simply oneself. So ultimately, we will find the very end of our search will be our self, not our little self, not our ego, but it is our true self, which is deeply within our heart. And that deep reality within our heart is the reality of all. So in simple ways, you start by developing more and more awareness in your daily life. And this is a must. This work needs structuring. Later on, this work will need a teacher, a master. But many of us, of course, we get lost in our thoughts. So throughout the day, not just that we get lost in our thoughts, what happens, we lose ourselves. We lose ourself. So to stop and communicate with oneself, in the words of a great master, is a revolutionary act. It in itself is probably one of the most sacred things you can do in your life, is to make this frequent connection with yourself. So what we need to do is to stop, sit down, perhaps stop being lost in thoughts and feelings and emotions. And basically, what we really do most of the days when we think, we get lost in thinking. it just proves to you that the thinking is actually, for most people, it is almost like a subconscious tendency or subconscious activity, because it is very difficult to think consciously. And you only become aware of your thought once it kind of is ended. So this is why this awareness has kind of in our practice many dimensions, and the only way we can get to the end of that practice is simply by becoming more and more and more aware. So what really gets caught in the acts of perception, you may say senses, but it's really the mind. And what really frees us from being caught is the awareness. So I'm distinguishing now the awareness from the mind. Awareness is something that is always there, and the mind, which is obviously dynamic and moving. And here the awareness is something which is static, which has to be recognized. Now, the whole idea of this 707 good news is to remind us of some good news, which is that we are trying our best to live deliberately. I use these words again and again, meaning that we're trying to rely on the power of choices that are in front of us. We do have a choice every moment in life, and some of the choice gets kind of I would say, kidnapped by the previous strong habits, but the choices are there. So to think in new ways, to be aware and attentive, is to basically not run in the old ways of thinking or feeling, not being caught up in mechanical thinking, not being caught up by the past or conditioning, as if there were kind of only one way to think about something. So we want to be able to explore different also capacities. One is, of course, being aware that stays there, but also being able to think in new ways. So if you have a habit, for example, that you're not happy with, you may conclude that the reason behind this is that there's a conditioning, obviously, and you have made an agreement with that conditioning, and it's very hard to change it, because that belief system, that a particular way of thinking is bringing you some benefit, is there also, even though it may not benefit you at all. So our plan of action is to think and act not by habit, but by this gift, or with this gift given in the form of having choices. And that means that we can always rise a little higher each day. And we should learn how to, when necessary, stop and slow down and try to decide well. Yeah, this is a part of the awareness kind of that comes into our thinking now. So this gift of choice is really the gift of present moment. And as we know, many people say this is the present moment is the gift of being present in some aspects like this. So um, what the problem is with majority of people is that they think by great speed. Everything is moving very fast for us, um, and so what happens is that there's a lot of impulsiveness, and certainly there's some form of impatience, which is a characteristic of a lack of discernment or lack of discrimination that has often landed many of us in troubles and different difficult situations. So try to develop as best as you can the understanding of the habits of your mind, how it wanders, how it operates, what guna is active, where does a particular thought is taking us to, what kind of a future experience is molded out of a particular thought that we have in the present, that will correspond to the quality of the thought we have in the present. All that is part of also this discriminative form of thinking that I'm suggesting here. So try to practice and be creative in finding effective and somewhat easy ways to methods to deal with your mind and to control, as we know, a very, very deeply troublesome, wandering mind that we have. Now, I will also say that sometimes the spirituality is mixed with the psychic kind of capacities and experiences and everything. I would say possible, don't mix the two. Leave the psychic out of this necessary work to understand the deeper working of your mind. And the person who does not know their mind very well and who is venturing into the dangerous waters of psychic life and astral worlds and everything is truly entering into something that they may not have a control over, and it will be detrimental to their work. So we cannot enter into astral worlds or any kind of higher worlds also without a sufficient level of purity. That is your passport in this kind of a sense. And we need not rush anywhere. I'm only saying this because a lot of this elementary work, which is truly not as elementary as appears to, because it stretches over many, many stages in our sadhana, is simply working effectively with the thought power. And when you can master your own mind, my teachers used to say, when you know your mind, you will know all minds. Therefore, the secret of knowing the mind in totality is to know one's own mind. But in the case of a spiritual aspirant, one's own mind becomes a continuous kind of a area of monitoring and observation, and it becomes something that you have to constantly watch and effectively work with a lot of compassion and at the same time discipline like this. So you need to be skillful, and that will come in time provided that you practice. So there's a story in Ramayana where Hanuman jumps into the he tries to cross over the ocean from India into Sri Lanka, and on his way he is being challenged and tempted by different kinds of uh, different kind of goblins and different kind of beings that are trying to take him literally down and almost destroy him. And he is able to master all these obstacles and eventually get to the Lanka because of his, I would say now in simple words, of his purity. So the purity is like a passport that allows you to go through all countries. So in a sense, it's like allowing you to go to any loca you want, but don't try to venture into going any place. Just to remember that this is important thing. Work with your mind and you will be able to understand everything. Why this coronavirus happens, what is the purpose of all these things. All these things can be discovered within our mind. Why? Because our mind is part of a greater mind, which we may call the cosmic mind. And within that cosmic mind, all the causes and effects are given, everything is there. There's another point I'd like to make, and that is the nowadays, there is this modern widespread habit, especially among the spiritual people, of accumulating knowledge from many different sources. And many spiritual aspirants have tendency to search everywhere for more information on any particular subject. For example, if you want to learn about karma, you go to one teacher, then you go to another teacher, you want to hear what that person has to say. Then you go to another teacher, like another teacher. Then you want to learn about the chakras, because in spiritual world, we have a lot of subject matters that are not perceivable without eyes, that are beyond our ordinary range of perception. They do not really belong to this plane of reality or something like that. So naturally we have a curiosity for these things. And I think, okay, initially it's nice to try to find out what this person says, what that person says. But we have to approach a spiritual life not as a collecting job where you go and you pick a little information here, a little bit of information there. And this is what's happening in modern times. People collect information. They become teachers themselves, which in a way, I would say we need some of it also because we need many more people to be awakened to the higher purpose in life. But the truth is the spiritual life always boils down to working with a few principles and you take this as a life guide, and you work with these principles indefinitely without setting a time limit or anything. Let's say you work simply with ahimsa, or you work with brahmacharya. So you have your own experiences with that, you have your own understanding with it. So what you do every day, you practice. You see, okay, this is how I do it here, this is where I failed there, and this way you learn. Some reading, then it may help, but then also there is something we call a tuning. Tuning in spiritual life means to pick a particular vibration, meaning a source of inspiration for you, a teacher or teaching, and you continuously align your mind with that particular level. For example, for me, even though I dabbed into many different things myself, I have found that the Swami Shivananda's teachings ring the purest for me. However, even myself, I stepped away this here and there, and I found my own language, my own way of teaching and everything. But when I need an inspiration, when I need to explore something on a regular basis, I go to it. So I hope that one day you can find something that resonates with you, that rings with you. It's not quite a mix of everything. Yes, it's wonderful to have everything available, but we have no capacity to process this. And sometimes you have to align almost different opinions about something. You say, how does this person say one thing about this, another person says another thing about this? So you can get confused. So tuning is rather more of a psychic method. It is not so much about even needing to love a particular teacher, or that is also okay. People have some bhakti or some devotion to a teacher, a master, or tradition. This is wonderful. But here the tuning means that I try to align my own thinking process, my reasoning, to that of a master. And of course, we're on two different levels, but nevertheless, each day I think of something that the master said, or I read something. We don't need to read much here, just to do it. Then I think, okay, this is what it feels like. And now the next step is to practice what you read. So then you make the bridge. Yeah, your practice is the bridge between what you read and what you would like to obviously attain. So really what happens is that people have this habit of searching in all directions for more information, but without ever doing any in-depth work on themselves. So this type of curiosity is must not be mixed with the scholars. Sometimes scholars are like that. They're like picking up here, picking up there. For some of us in Sanskrit, we know how this is. This is you get lost in all kinds of attitudes and all that. That is because when sampradaya or the tradition is not present, when you don't have like some kind of a connection with the teaching, then you naturally mix, because at this point you are your own teacher, and that's allowed. Obviously you have to find whatever inspires you, and I'm not against this. In fact, even if you do get inspiration from many different uh, corners, many different sources, you still have to do the work. When you get down to the practice, then you're going to realize more and more of a necessity to attune yourself to a particular type of thinking or logic, which is the part also of spiritual tradition or philosophical tradition or anything like that. I have never found a good Buddhist that is able to understand Christianity, or good Christian that is able to understand, the Hindu teachings or Indic teachings like that. It's very difficult. In modern times, we need to have flexibility and we need to have some expansion. But when it comes down to sadhana, to spiritual work, that's where you will find a necessity to say, okay, this is the path I choose. I may borrow some ideas here and there, I may look at it, no problem. But I want to find something that really resonates with me. You see, try your best to find a spiritual path that really inspires you. It's like, I always give this example. There's so many men and women in this world, and people looking for a partner. But then you have to find and sometimes settle with one person. You cannot settle with hundreds of people. That's not going to work. You may get into a lot of trouble, you know that. And you know, and it complicates things, needless to say. So why this mixing is not good is because in some ways affects our psychic bodies in the same way as eating different types of food can affect your digestive power. You may not be able to digest if you have Italian food mixed with Chinese food and then added to do some Egyptian food and like this. So this is how we eat in New York City, but not everybody else. So Manhattan is known for indigestions. So then we go to, you know, to whatever these pharmacy shops, we get some pill for indigestion like this because we're mixing. And we were not born to mix. We were born to pick something. So as I say, without being hard on yourself or nothing, if you need more time, no problem. But eventually you do have to find something that resonates with you and something that you will practice, hopefully until you realize the self. Now, the next thing that comes to me is the importance of taking some form of a fasting from our experiences. Even when you're reading something, you know, if you're reading continuously, you may not enjoy it anymore. So what it is that we must watch out for excesses of any kind. You will find that people who have a certain moderation in relation to the experiences are actually able to enjoy them more than the others. For example, I know some people who occasionally have a little chocolate and they enjoy it very much. And myself who would like to have chocolate every day, I may just eat it again mechanically, not saying that that's exactly what happens, but you eat it and then you don't enjoy it. You don't even notice that you have eaten. So we have a huge uh, uh, trend here, huge culture, especially here in America, where people just over flooded with anything they want, and they've lost the capacity to enjoy literally anything. So it is for these reasons that many of the addictions develop in the countries that have everything, right? Because when you can, by one click that provides what I call an immediate fulfillment on the Amazon, I'm not sure about that, but anyway, the immediate fulfillment happens once that your bank account has been emptied a little bit, and something will arrive same day or next day, or now coronavirus, you may wait several weeks. I ordered one set of, sorry to go off the track a little bit, one set of long johns. I didn't realize it's coming from somewhere, Lithuania or whatever. It's taken 3 weeks to get it. Thankfully, it's not cold, otherwise I would have been frozen. But I'm so used to Amazon delivering everything fast. So anyway, what needs to happen is that we must learn to appreciate less. So the reason being is that it is the excess of things that actually dulls our ability to enjoy, and therefore it dulls our sensitivity. It's a big problem in modern times, and if you're able to, amidst all this abundance that there is in our world, or there was, we don't know anymore, if you're able to actually enjoy whatever little you have without wanting more, ooh, then you have become greatly disciplined and spiritualized. But this is, of course, easier if you have your heart like connected to a higher principle, higher living and everything. See, for example, if we read too much, then our mind becomes saturated with what we read. We no longer enjoy thinking. So is this really a good idea? Don't we all love to read all the time? We read all day long, let's say, and then we go to sleep and we read some more. Unless you, of course, you work and you want to have a little break from that and you read something before you go to bed. Not the best time to read, if we ask my Ayurvedic people here, sitting. But anyway, the idea is that when you read, and I have to say, everything I'll tell you, I've broken all the rules and regulations. So I'm learning now at this old age, all these things. So I'm sharing them with you. But I have accumulated many books exactly in the same way as some of you do. And, for me, the books all stacked up in such a nice way so that when I do the fish pose in yoga, I see all the books I would like to read and I don't have time for because I only have two eyes, maybe one brain hopefully or something like this. I can only process so much information, so much gigabytes per minute and per hour and everything, that even if I was to read every single day a book, it will take me still 2 to 3 years to read all books. So, okay, I understand some books are there for inspiration, some books will maybe for reference, all that. But nevertheless, in spiritual life, again, I will underline this again and again and again. You work with a few essential principles and try to avoid accumulating too many ideas in your head. The indigestion in the physical body, in the stomach, is a reflection of the indigestion in the mind. So what we're trying to avoid is both. To have a moderation in the way we think, how we think, what we read, what we watch, what kind of music, and when do we listen. These are very important things. You can apply this principle of rebuilding your sensitivity back by applying it in every area of your life. For example, this practice goes very well for things like music. There's this famous Spotify. I'm sure you heard of that. It completely destroyed my taste for music because everything is available and I'm not used to it. When everything is available, I have no, how would I say, I don't have um, a thrill of trying to get to it. I'll tell you, when I was little, I used to get these LPs a long time ago. Some of your friends probably remember those great days when you would buy one LP or two LPs, maybe even a month, and gradually they will build up. But it wasn't like you could get thousands of songs a day unless you were, you had your money growing on trees or something like that. It's okay. Those days we will get one like this LP, one book, let's say a month, and then we will be so happy. Yeah, I will look at the book, I will have my time reading, connecting with it. It's like when you used to get, I don't know if you remember, when you get a love letter, I don't know, many of you got it. I had one. Anyway, you get the love letter and you read it, and it's like comes in the mail and you wait and then you read it again and again and again and again. I can't take it anymore. Okay. These days are gone. Now you get 150, like I get 150 emails in a single day. I'm sure some of you do the same. So of course you're filtering through, trying to first get rid of things that you don't need before you get to the things you have to read. And so I don't like accumulating. I don't like too many messages, texting, WhatsApp. If you ask me personally, I will get rid of this as soon as I can. But of course, you let some people communicate with you, especially the aspirants. For me, always have clear access to me. So please don't think you cannot send me an email if you wish so. And many of you are already behind on the schedule. You should have sent it a long time ago. Please do send it again. And for this, I have space and time. Okay. But if you listen to the music all the time, when you're working, when you're cooking, you will not enjoy the music. You may think you're enjoying it, but less and less and less. Your brain cells are going to become saturated. So this is a problem with music, reading, also with travels. If you go frequently to the same places, meeting the same people, you're less able to really feel it, like experience it. This is why when I go to Cayman Islands, I go only once in a while, right? So not every day. I would not appreciate it. So similarly like this, if you have a partner or somebody like this, if you frequently see them, talk to them, you just take them for granted, right? You don't really enjoy their presence as much as you would have if you were to meet them for the first time, second time, that month, like that. So even in relationships, we have to learn to fast. right? So if you, let's say you're writing a love message to your partner, right? Husband, wife, somebody, not every day. If you send them every day, if you put one note every day for them, there will come the time they will not see the note. And then you will be so upset. You will say, okay, did you see the note I left? And I say, oh my God, you mean yesterday or the day before yesterday? So that would not work. Thankfully, our birthday is only once a year. So we receive the love from people. We give it to others on that day. So it's a beautiful day. Suppose my birthday was every day. It would be boring to me and to everybody else. So similarly, gift giving is like that. If you give gifts to people continuously, they don't appreciate them anymore. But if you surprise them, then they will appreciate it. Now, of course, if these people are receiving gifts all the time, it doesn't matter what you give them. When you give them, they won't be able to appreciate it. This is the downside of abundance, because the abundance requires Vishnu. So Lakshmi is abundance. Vishnu is obviously truth, but it's also discipline, you know. So we need to have both. To enjoy the abundance, you need to have some ability to kind of control your mind in relation to that abundance that is available. So keeping a little distance, meaning not in your heart, but keeping just a little bit of a distance to fill in the space between you and other people, you and a book, you and the music, so that you can, by keeping the distance, be able to rediscover or discover new things about that particular music or that person and so on. So when you throw yourself headlong into any experience again and again and again, you soon become bored and you feel nothing. And this is the truth for our people. You see, some of the richest people, I'm not saying that the richness is bad, right? But some of the richest people in this world have no ability to enjoy anything because they've just said everything. And unfortunately, in the Mother Teresa's language, there's some of the poorest people are the richest people. Poorest in a sense they can't really experience it. Now, I'm not saying if you're rich, this is a wonderful thing. But one of the words for richness in Sanskrit is bhaga, meaning share, means also wealth. The idea of the wealth is should be shared. This is how I see it. So if you have richness, you please share it. You can share it with me. You can share it with anybody else. I'm teasing. So this is the idea. Please learn to hold your mind back a little bit from wanting to experience something again and again and again. I personally am still practicing, especially with chocolate. So I'm making some progress and I will let you know when I master it. So this way you can feel also happy to do it. See, sensitivity, ability to feel deeply, meaning also to be able to recognize new things, to receive the new information about something, happens only when you don't frequently go at it in a sense that it saturates your perception, your mind. So this sensitivity develops in people who are able to reduce the quantity and increase the quality. So that's the secret. You see, most people see and hear so many things that they become, so swamped by things that they become indifferent. This is just what happens. It's actually natural. So what happens is the majority of people do not attend to details of anything, or they can't really appreciate. Let's say a child is there, you want to concentrate on the child properly, right? To give them attention. But because whatever else is going on in our life, we have no capacity to concentrate, in fact, on the child. So we allow our attention to skim over things without resting anywhere. And so what happens is that nothing in reality makes an impression on us anymore. It's like almost like the LP, has its grooves in it and it's done. Nothing else can be put inside. So what happens, we ended up looking, but without seeing. Or we listen to the music without actually hearing it. So what happens is that this tendency now is from being initially alive, especially let's say you meet somebody for the first time, you listen to some music for the first time, you go to a satsang for the first time. There's a huge appreciation in our hearts. But the moment it's overdone, and maybe we're not able to be receptive anymore, the habit creeps in, the habit of seeing things again in the same way. So this habit, unfortunately, rules our lives, and nothing can be more pernicious than be allowed to be ruled by habit. The habits deaden all beings, human beings specifically. In fact, if you watch the animals, they have their own habits, but when it comes to perception, needing to be alive and aware of what's around them in order to detect if there is a danger, if there is food, and there's different things, even though their instincts are working kind of on a habitual basis, they're very alert and they never perceive things in the same way for most of the time. So my suggestion is do not get accustomed to anything, including to this 707 good news every Tuesday. I hope to keep it every Tuesday. Try to always look at everything, whether it be that ideas or music or other people, or even an instrument, musical instrument, something like that, always with a fresh eye. I want to see you with a fresh eye. I don't want to say, oh my God, these people were last Tuesday. They're in this, okay, it's so wonderful to see this person, that person, all that. I say that it's wonderful and feel nothing. That's not good. Your feeling of something that is fresh may not be even verbally communicated. It is just that all of a sudden, in the perception of something uh, in a new way, all of a sudden new knowledge arises, new subtle little entities arise between you and that person. All you feel inspired by the presence of others. We've lost this in the modern time, so we do things, I always say this, and I'll repeat it again and again and again. We do so many things. We cook, we have no love. We talk, we have no love. Sensitivity means love. You look at the plants, you have no love. You should be able to look at anything and feel like being in love, not love, romantic love, but just like looking at the tree, you feel some form of a love and a thrill of an exchange between you and that which appeared to be just a dead tree. In reality, is something very alive. You start to develop psychic qualities of feeling things in a different way, and these kind of relationships will animate you even more. you know you will prefer to be in front of these things than in front of computers, although you can, even with a computer, you can establish a thing. If you slow down a little bit and you press a little keys with some awareness, this and that, you may start to feel some connection too. But of course, we're talking more so with other things, with people, real things, and all that. So the question is, how do we do this practically? Watch everything, as they say, look at everything with a beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is a Zen mind. Study things, look at them as if you were meeting them for the first time. Let's say you have a partner, you have a husband, a dog, a cat, or nobody for that sake, you live by yourself. Okay, you begin your day as if the whole of this panorama of experiences has been given to you for the first time. You were just born. You're a baby entering into this life. Or if you're with partners, you observe them as if you were seeing them for the first time. You may find some fresh spark of inspiration in that instantly. You see, when you see somebody for the first time, let's say, think of somebody you met. Okay, I don't know, this is your imagination or your real experience. Somebody that you really love or you loved. The first day, second day, first week, 1 week. For example, if you were not able to see them every day, there was so much was building up in you, just expectation to see that person, right? When you think of them, you smile, all these things. So the more you were able to do that, And then you see them next time, there's a rapture of a feeling or rasa in you, like it's an amazing experience. Or same for the music or art. We can do the same thing, right? So then if we can bring that moment of happiness, or that kind of a pattern or process of experiencing something for the first time into what we do every day, we will find that we will starting to live a spiritual life. That is a spiritual life. You know, you cannot have a spiritual life without feeling anything. Many people say, oh, I'm a jnani, I'm just discriminating between Atma and Anatma. Don't do, Swami Shivananda says like this: if you have no mercy in your heart for a homeless person, if your heart doesn't literally bleed for a homeless person, you have no spirituality within yourself. To feel for others and their suffering also requires sensitivity. Needless to say that when we meet somebody, you know, if we feel inspired, let's say, by meeting a new person, somebody maybe that we love, we want to live with. And then what happens after some time, everything wears out, you know? You see their habits, your judgment increases day by day. This is what happens in ashrams also. You know, first time you come to an ashram, you're like a free bird. You come and you sit and you meditate. You will do anything they ask you to do. You're like in bliss, and you think, oh, this is going to last forever. And then after about 3-4 months, I think, oh my God, if they say Jaya Ganesha one more time, I'm going to fall asleep. I'm going to do something. Happens. This is the nature of our, unfortunately, our minds are like that. So what we need to do, and now life, we all want to attain more of something. Whether you want to attain more wealth, you want to attain more knowledge, or more of anything, we must strive to cultivate within ourselves a state of mind that allows us to appreciate what we already have, even if it is very little. This is the secret of life, literally. For the for the essence of life is never in possessions themselves, right? You can have a Lamborghini, you can have a small little Fiat, you can have a little car, but in the feelings that we get from the things we own, right? So this is where again quality comes in, and it it works against quantity. When you don't have quality of your experience that you derive from something, then you think, I need to quantify it. This is how addictive behavior is formed. You're not able to feel something anymore from what you have, so you need to double it up, triple it up, and all that. So basically, if our ability to experience feelings, sorry, it is our ability to experience feelings that makes us into valuable, wonderful human beings, living beings. So, and such, the slightest thing, the smallest thing can satisfy it if we know how to look at it, how to consider it, right? Otherwise, as I said, we can possess anything we want in this world, and we will still feel poverty within our souls, and we will be empty on inside and rich on the outside, but in reality, we would not be living this life, you know? So by reclaiming your sensitivity, by deciding to live after this coronavirus a life that is filled with simplicity, with less but richer, right? You will be able to feel much more alive. There are people who I'm hearing all kinds of accounts from people, and they're sharing with me that this is, despite of the horror and the tragedy that took hold of this world, they're finding that the rediscovering some important aspects of their life. And in fact, rediscovering even what it means to be alive, right? So to be alive means to be able to refine our perceptions and develop a proper relationship with things, the proper taste for things, right? And this depth of our being able to feel the things is often inversely proportional to quantity of things that we try to possess. So this is an invitation to explore your life in a new way. I like to call this nurturing of sensitivity as a part of some small teaching that I imbibed. I have lived just like you through many different experiences in many different environments, most of my life in ashrams and different kind of centers. And I have found that this is a critical principle of spiritual life to be properly understood and practiced all the time. Otherwise, new techniques and new this and new that will only work temporarily, and then it will lose the excitement, because it is the nature of human mind to get bored. The reason is, again, that it's easy for us to get simply overfilled with things. So remember, this overconsumption in these modern times is really not necessarily the problem of abundance, but it is the problem of not being to regulate our relationship with the external world in a proper way. And perhaps I will finish with my favorite story that all of you know, but still I will say it again and again. And this story is from Ramayana, from Tulsidas version, where Rama, who is the king, with his wife Sita, is asked to live in the forest for a long time. So he was in the forest with his wife and also with his brother, whose name is Lakshmana, 3 of them. The problem was the forest was infested with demons of all kinds, all sizes and all powers. Now, those demons of those days, we may think of them in different ways, but they were powerful beings. So what happens is that one day, Sita, who is the wife of Rama, Sri Rama, who is the king, she sees a golden deer. And she says, oh my God, look at the golden deer, golden deer. And Rama says, how can it be possible? How is this? Has anyone seen ever a golden deer? Are you okay? Do you have a temperature? Do you need temperature taking? You have some symptoms that are really problematic here. What should we do? Are you okay? And she said, no, I'm definitely okay. So they were chatting like this, having some tea, some kind of green tea or whatever. All of a sudden, again, the green deer comes. Again, this is what she saw. But Rama looks at it, there is no golden deer. So eventually she said, please, Rama, please fetch me this golden deer. I would love to have it. It's like the best kind of a pet you can have. You know, Rama is scratching his head and said, oh my God, what to do? This doesn't sound like a good thing, but you know, I got to do it. She's my wife. I got to follow the news. So this is what happens. And Rama and Lakshmana now, before setting out to fetch that golden deer, uh, uh, Lakshmana, his brother, puts a line around the property and puts a special mantra there. He says, this is a protective mantra. You cannot step over this line at any cost, but nothing can come in. She said, no problem at all. Just as they went out to look for the golden deer, and what happened is that there was a mendicant, you know, somebody like that in orange coming and asking bhiksham. He give me some bhiksha, like alms. So she heard him and she came out and she saw there was an old man and who was asking for some bhiksha, for some alms. And she immediately brings some food for him. But then he was an elderly gentleman. He says, please, can you just stretch your arms a little bit? I'm not able to. I have arthritis. I have a, carpus tunnel, what you call it. I cannot do it. She said, okay, no problem. So she stretches her arms to give him a plate with food. And all of a sudden, she's crossed the line. That mendicant wasn't a mendicant. It was a demon, 10-headed demon, huge thing that all of a sudden, full of power, kidnapped Sita. Then he took the whole story, the whole book, to bring the Sita back. In the meantime, Rama and his brother, Sri Rama and his brother, go and they they hunt this golden deer and they catch the deer only to realize that that wasn't a golden deer, but it was a demon also, who was actually a relative of this demon. It's like this. So they worked in a cooperation. One was dragging the Sita, the Rama out, and the second was kidnapping Sita. So what is the story? What is the moral of the story? I'll finish now in 2 minutes. I'm so sorry, a little longer, Satsang. I haven't seen you for a week. It's your fault. I'm being new here. You're new to me. Anyway, what happened was that this is how we have to consider this. This is a very deep teaching here. The teaching is this, that the line around the property represents the limits of our interacting with the world of objects, with the external world. And so we have to set the limit. We have to put the mantra kind of over so that we are not drawn beyond that line. Why? Because this golden deer, in fact, is nothing but the Maya, the illusory power of Creator. So that Maya consists in all attractive things that are in this universe. And for each person, there's some specific Mayatic, influences and temptations, but there are also general ones. So what happens is the Sita represents the intellect, and the intellect, which is not in this case purified, gets tempted. The mind gets tempted by these objects that look gold, but they're not really gold. They're just ultimately, upon the discriminative analysis, we find them, they have no value, no nothing. In fact, they're detrimental to us. This isn't the case when you're really going for something that's not good for you. But in reality, setting up a little line of moderation in relation to your external world is the key to happy living in this world. One, spiritually you're protected, and the second thing is you don't have this indulgence that leads you to boredom. You don't know what to do, what you want to do next day. So this is enough for today. Next time we'll talk about setting up some little ideas and things like that, and we will continue next time. Okay, Hari Om Tat Sat Om.